There has been many teams over the course of NASCAR history. Some are extremely successful, win so many championships, so many races, and have been around since basically the beginning of NASCAR. Others don't do so well, and they fade away into obscurity pretty quickly. But then there's a third batch of teams that never actually saw the racetrack, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. These are NASCAR's lost teams. They, of course, were all announced. They planned to go racing at some point and never actually ended up hitting the track for one reason or another. Some of the reasons for these teams never actually racing include lack of sponsorship, lack of funding, which kind of goes with the sponsorship as well, maybe driver issues, maybe team owner issues. Who knows, maybe team owners get in legal trouble, the team is a fraud. It could basically be anything for a reason for them never to hit the racetrack. And there are more than you actually would think. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So our first team that we're going to be talking about today that never actually raced in NASCAR, or at least the Cup Series, O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, or the Truck Series, is a team that was supposed to race starting in the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. And the team we're talking about is German-owned 3F Racing, which would have been the first ever German NASCAR team. They, of course, announced that they would start racing part-time in the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. They tapped Ryan Vargas, basically a NASCAR veteran at this point, to race the number 30 Chevrolet in the NASCAR Cup Series for multiple races. I'm not exactly sure what race they planned on actually starting. Probably would have been the Daytona 500. But of course, it was a high profile. You've probably actually heard of this team before. High profile new team that was coming into NASCAR. Like I said, first ever German team. There really aren't any international owned teams in NASCAR. I'm not sure if ever. This probably would have been one of the first ever ones. Ryan Vargas also would have gotten a shot. So 2024 rolled around, and unfortunately, they never showed up to the racetrack to start the season, and we never actually saw them after that. They also apparently planned on running some late model races as well, but apparently that never materialized either. Not sure this would have been in the Cars Tour or what, but they're also going to run the number 30, with them not exactly who sure who that driver is. So you might think, man, a team, they announced multiple different things and they don't do anything. All hope is lost for this organization, but apparently not. They actually technically did race in NASCAR, just not really what they originally planned. And apparently, for some odd reason, that was the NASCAR Euro Series, where they signed Ryan Vargas to race full-time in the number 30 car. That was, of course, in 2024. And I'm sorry, I actually made a mistake. I was going back on my old video, and actually they were supposed to race in 2023. They were announced, of course, in 2022, as you saw from that Twitter post right there. But, of course, the Euro Series is something definitely very interesting to race in. But we have actually never seen them in the Cup Series after they completed that insane adventure back in 2024. And they haven't really raced in anything since, so for now, 3F Racing is a lost NASCAR team. Our next team on this list is not as so high profile as 3F Racing was. They plan to make their first ever NASCAR Cup Series start at Texas Motor Speedway, the summer race back in 2020. The team we're talking about is Team Keller Racing, who, of course, like I said, planned the race at Texas 2020. They plan to run the number 90 Chevrolet. I'm not exactly sure what driver was planning to race this car, but Tommy Baldwin is actually going to be the crew chief at that race at Texas Motor Speedway. So Texas Week rolled around. They were on the entry list, I believe. Well, I mean, in a way, they actually technically entered the race as a 41st car. As you know, the NASCAR Cup Series only allows 40 cars, and this was during the time where there was no qualifying in NASCAR due to, of course, COVID. So if you were not a chartered race car or one of the cars that had owner's points, you were not able to race in that race because you didn't have a chance to race your way in through qualifying because, of course, there wasn't any. They were banking on there being originally less than 40 cars, not including them, which I think in some races in 2020 there actually were. But due to this, they entered the race, but of course were immediately eliminated from it, and they were at the DNQ automatically just like that. So they were quite literally playing the lottery, entering the race, hoping just some way that there would be less than 40 cars, but unfortunately for them, there wasn't. But the funny thing is their paint scheme actually raced on the track with BJ McLeod Racing, and I have a strange feeling that this is the exact same car that they actually planned the race, because it's the exact same paint scheme, just with the number changed to 78 this time, same sponsor. I just have a strange feeling that they used the same exact car. Maybe they had some sort of partnership with BJ McLeod. So maybe technically the car actually did make it to the racetrack. Who knows? We probably never will. But after that, Team Keller Racing decided that they would never enter another NASCAR race again, and they quietly faded out of existence. So our next team actually planned the race in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series starting in 2024, and that of course was Bradley Wilson Racing. They announced that they would join the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series with this very interesting looking paint scheme that says your logo here all over it, and with a very familiar number as well. That being the Kyle Busch Motorsports number 51 with the exact same font that KBM used to run as well. Of course, KBM at this time had closed the year prior. They even switched to Toyota a year before that. So it was very weird to see a brand new Toyota number 51 with a Kyle Busch Motorsports font about to hit the racetrack. Or at least we thought. So you see where it says your logo here? Yeah, that was the issue. They could not find sponsorship whatsoever for their Truck Series organization, and they were never able to find enough funding to ever head to the racetrack in 2024. They also had planned starts in 2025 as well. Obviously, that never happened. Now, halfway through 2026, we've never heard from them since. So I think it's safe to say at this point that they are a lost NASCAR team, which is definitely a shame because I would have loved to see the number 51 Toyota back on the racetrack with the Kyle Busch Motorsports font. Pretty obviously, it wouldn't be running up front. Just like KBM did, they probably would be a back marker, which would still look kind of weird, but it would be nice to have some sort of normalcy come back with KBM on the track again, but that, of course, never happens. Now, boy, do I have a very unique one coming up next. So we have to go back all the way to 2011 for this next team. And the reason I say it was a very unique team is because, in a way, this team was going to be fan-owned. Yeah, you heard that right. Fan-owned by NASCAR fans. And the team I'm talking about is the red, white, and blue Screaming American Eagle, America's racing team, which play in the field the number 76 Chevrolet Impala in the NASCAR Cup Series for 2011. Now, like I said, this is an interesting organization due to them having the most interesting business model for a race team I've ever seen in my life. So I'm not exactly sure if this is 100% accurate on the prices, but I found on Reddit that apparently fans could pay to own a part of this NASCAR race team, and you had to pay between $45 and $2,000 depending on how much of the team that you actually wanted to own. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, this is a really cool concept, but a lot of us don't have the money to be spending over $45 for a NASCAR team, so you can see pretty quickly why this kind of failed. Now, I have no clue who would have been selling part of the team. I don't know if NASCAR was involved. I really don't know anything else. There isn't really much information on this team right now, but obviously not a lot of people bought into this because we're not all rich and we don't have enough money to spend $2,000 each on a NASCAR team, and they probably would have had to sell a lot of shares because it said they were selling majority of the race team to the fans, so clearly it didn't work the way they thought it would. They planned the race in the 2011 Daytona 500. The driver was unknown, and they didn't get really any sponsorship to cover any sort of the cost. Of course, most of the fans decided they weren't going to be buying to this race team, and they never hit the track after that, and they faded out of existence. But for some hilarious reason, now what, like 15 years later, their Facebook page is still up. Of course, it says they're fueled by the most passionate fans in NASCAR. Obviously, they were announced in July of 2010. They're the first ever team to be led by NASCAR fans, but clearly none of this actually ever planned out. I'm kind of sad it didn't. I wish we had some maybe like millionaires, billionaires come into here and buy some of the team, but unfortunately that never happened, and they never ended up actually racing. Moving on, this face might look very familiar, and that is because he is a part of yet another lost NASCAR team. That, of course, being Team Stange Racing, who were announced in, I think, early 2022, and they said they were going to be running a bunch of road course races in the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series. I'm pretty sure starting at the Indianapolis road course, they might have been mixing some ovals into there as well. They were signing driver Tarso Marcus to drive the number 79 Ford Mustang in the NASCAR Cup Series for their brand new team. Now, at first glance, it kind of maybe seems like they didn't come out of nowhere because they actually raced in the Indianapolis 500 before, but that was all the way back in 2019, like 3 or 4 years prior before that, and they randomly decided that they were going to race in the NASCAR Cup Series for multiple races that season in 2022. But you want to know something even more weird? Many years before that, randomly in 2014 of all years, they decided they were going to race in ARCA. So they raced in 2014, took a break, then they raced in 2019. Again, I'm not 100% sure if they did any other sort of racing, but I don't think so between those times. And then they decided in 2022 they were going to come back to NASCAR sort of action, stock car action that is, but also decided that they were going to return in ARCA as well and do some races there. And ARCA wasn't the only thing. They announced that they were also going to be racing in the NASCAR Truck Series race at Sonoma. They also were apparently going to do the Xfinity Series race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They never got approved to do that, and they, of course, never made Sonoma in the Truck Series either. And they even plan expanding their insane empire they were trying to build in 2022 to the Cars Tour, I believe, or whatever this was. Of course, it was late model racing, and man, they just were all over the place. I actually did find their 2022 Cup Series schedule right here with Tarko Marquez. He was actually going to do 4 oval races at Daytona, Las Vegas, Homestead, and Phoenix with some other road courses as well. So between the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, the ARCA Series, and late model racing, it seemed like they had a ton of races planned. So how many starts in NASCAR late models and actual stock cars did they do that season in 2022? Well, it was 0. Absolutely nothing. Team Stage Racing made no starts whatsoever in any of the NASCAR series or even stock car series that they planned on doing in 2022. They kept delaying their Cup Series debut. Like I said before, they were never approved to race in Xfinity. Not sure why they never did ARCA or late models. They just never showed up for the Truck Series race either. And we still do not know the reason why. They had sponsorship, they had drivers. Seemed like everything was working well. They just decided, you know, we're not showing up to the racetrack. And they never did. The only sort of racing they've been seen in since then is a sports car series that their own sponsor is the title sponsor of. So I don't even know what to think of this team at this point. And of course, we haven't heard from them in anything to do with NASCAR since 2022. Okay, well, after that wild ride, I think it's time to go to maybe a more simple team. Wait a minute, what the hell? What is the name of this team? Oh my god. So for a little bit of context before I reveal it, it was actually a part-time team that was supposed to race just the Charlotte race in 2020 for the NASCAR Truck Series. It was when Kyle Busch put a bounty on him, or I think it was Kevin Harvick that actually was going to pay for it, for $100,000 to any, I believe, Cup Series driver that could beat him in that Truck Series race. Of course, that team planned to have one of those Cup Series drivers actually in the truck going for that $100,000. So anyways, now to reveal the most insane team name I've ever heard. The team was called Erik Jones-Wauters Motorsports with Billy Ballo and James Finch. That's the name of the damn race team. Oh my goodness. Usually kind of see those long names only reserved for race names. Break your 400. So anyways, this was the paint scheme that they were gonna run. Number 5, as you can see, kind of unique for a Truck Series Toyota. It had the old Phoenix construction logo on it, which you remember from James Finch's Phoenix Racing. Of course, like you saw from that insanely long name, he of course was part of this team with Erik Jones and whoever Billy Ballo is. As you can probably tell, Erik Jones was gonna drive the truck and go for the $100,000 to beat Kyle Busch. I'm not really sure what team this would have been aligned with. I'm assuming probably would have been KBM. But again, Kyle Busch was the one who was driving for KBM, his own team, and there's really no way they could possibly fuel their own truck out of their own race shop or something like that just for a one-off start. So I'm not really exactly sure. But of course, they never made it to the racetrack, so it didn't matter anyways. And that, of course, was from the good old 2020 NASCAR Magical No Qualifying, where 7 damn teams missed the race. 7. 47 trucks entered. For some reason, 40 made the race. Usually it's only 36. I'm not really sure what happened there. And 7 trucks were not able to make it to the racetrack after entering the race because they, of course, were excluded because they didn't have enough owners points. Erik Jones was one of them. It was only a one-off start. So obviously he didn't make any starts again that season, and that team faded out of existence. So our final team of this video has more pictures of their race shop with, for some reason, formula cars in it than actual laps on the racetrack. And that team was Finish Line Motorsports Marketing, the most AI name I've ever heard. They plan to run the number 80 Chevrolet in the NASCAR Cup Series starting at the 2023 Daytona 500 with sponsorship from Tire Rack and Safelite. And with their first ever render being of a Gen 6 car in 2023 and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series playoff sticker, you know this is going to be a good one. They signed J.J. Yealy to race the car. Actually, a pretty high-profile driver if you think about it for a team like this. And he would race it in the NASCAR Cup Series starting in 2023. And what the hell? I just apparently found out they were going to plan to run the entire Cup Series schedule unchartered. And they were going to have an April 252nd race at Talladega. What am I looking at? I mean, with that, these generic-looking cars, the wrong decals, the wrong car as well. This is even the old version of the Gen 6 Camaro, not even the modern one that they ended off with in 2021. It should be no surprise that this team didn't show up to Daytona and didn't show up to any race in 2023 and has never showed up to another race since then. And from the race shop photos, apparently they lied. They're going to run Fords instead. And is that a Hesseberg bumper I see up there? Oh my goodness, apparently they were aligned with Rayum as well. What a team. My goodness, what do we even say? But anyways, that'll just about wrap it up for this video, man. What a rabbit hole we just went down of these lost NASCAR teams. Give me some of your thoughts in the comments down below, and maybe anything that I missed, as it is hard to find information. I will see you guys next time.